Good day. I'd like to talk about something that has been on my mind to talk about for a while. And I may have talked about it briefly, but I have never really just came out with everything about this particular situation. October 26th, 1984, I had a little boy whose name was Daniel. I named him Daniel Branch. Daniel was born somewhat prematurely. He was born maybe 3 to 4 weeks, so that's premature, but he was 5 pounds. And Daniel was born with a plethora of issues. Daniel was born with a syndrome which was called trisomy 13. And most times when you hear of certain syndromes, there are certain syndromes like extra 21 chromosome. When you see an extra 21 chromosome in a child, it's considered Down syndrome. Well, trisomy 13 is an extra 13 chromosome. And Daniel was born with rare disorders. He had no palate at the top of the roof of the mouth. He had a cleft palate, and he had some other issues concerning his heart. And so his prognosis was death. When I did my research after his birth, I realized that there were not very many children born like that, so it was a rarity. However, if they were born that way, normally their prognosis was death before a year. I did, however, meet someone who had a nephew, and that nephew at the time, I believe, made it to maybe about 15, or he was in his teens. And so after having Daniel, I felt like maybe there was some hope. But unfortunately, Daniel passed away 2 months after his birth. And I just want to talk about a couple of moments that I remember specifically. Well, I used to have to feed this baby, Daniel, with a tube. But before feeding him with a tube, I would have to place the stethoscope on my ears and listen to verify that the tube was going into his stomach and not into his lungs, because of course, if it went into his lungs, it could be fatal. So that was a lot. And mind you, at the time, I think I was like 20. I want to say I was 20 years old. And that's what I would have to do. So I would have to make sure that I fed him with the tube and just watch him. And eventually, I said October 26th, he was born. Eventually, December, the day before Christmas, December 24th, 1984, it was 84. I noticed that his breathing was stressed. He was somewhat in distress. And I was married at the time, or if I wasn't married at the time, I was to be married. And my ex said that we would keep him at home, although the doctors said that I should take him and place him in the care of another facility. I didn't want to. I don't really think that challenges scare me. I think somewhere inside of me, that's something that's innate, that's inside of me. And so it was my baby, and I don't even think it was a challenge. It was just, I was going to do it. And so to make a very long story short, Daniel, I put him to bed, and I went to sleep. And at about 3 in the morning, I woke up, and I got up and got him up, and I took him and I began to bathe him at that time of the morning. And I put an outfit on him that I was going to let him wear on Christmas Day. So this might have been the 23rd going into the 24th. Yeah, so the 24th of December, 1984, I cleaned him up and put his Christmas outfit on. And while I was bathing him, I guess it was then that it hit me that I was preparing him for his demise. And after I finished weeping and going through that particular episode, I put him back in the room, and my ex picked him up and put him on his chest. And then I went downstairs. And I went down there to wait. Once again, it was all a big blur. However, I went downstairs to wait for what ultimately would happen. And when I went downstairs, I noticed that there was one of my goldfish. Well, I think it was my only goldfish because all the rest of them were gone. But I think he had jumped out of the bowl, but he was gone. He was out of the bowl on the floor, gone. He had died. And then I looked over and I saw my VCR. Yeah, VCR. Wow. Playing. But it was blinking. And I couldn't make out, what was going on. I couldn't figure out why it was blinking. And then all of a sudden, a time came to me. And it was 7:21. And as loud as I just said that, that's how loud it was in my ear. 7:21, my baby's gonna die. So I waited downstairs until 7:21. Mind you, I went downstairs probably about 4:30 in the morning, and I waited. And at 7:21, my ex came downstairs with Daniel, who had passed away. And although it's sad, and it was sad, I want to talk about how joyful and how good God made me feel that morning. The ambulance service that came, they came and one of them took the baby, and he was looking at me because I was holding the baby by this time, and he probably thought I was a little bit cuckoo because I'm just holding a baby that's passed. And I told him I was okay. And I told God, thank you for his 2 months of life. The other two guys surrounded me, and believe it or not, they began to pray over me. I have never, ever experienced that before, but that day marked another good part of my life. It marked maturity in God at that time. I was young, but I felt like I was given something so precious, and I was able to stay with him until he was finished here on this earth. So that's just something I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to say to mothers and fathers out there who are faced with some disablement with your child or your loved one, and you feel like it may be overwhelming, and it might be. But just remember this: you can make it. You can take it. With God's help, you can do all things. And I just wanted to talk about that. And, R.I.P. Daniel Branch. God bless you.